Hello, and welcome to another episode of the NOTstalgia podcast.
A podcast where we discuss the retelling or continuation of pop culture favorites as seen through a queer and feminist lens.
My name is Eric Lefebvre.
And I am Jessica Tercero.
And this week, we're joined by...
I'm Alex, and I'm neither of those things.
Woo!
You're neither Eric nor Jessica?
Yes, exactly. I'm Alex.
Oh, Lord.
Welcome to the party.
So, tell us about yourself.
I am a musician. I play in the Bay Area band Sarcasm. Back in my youth, I used to do a lot of theater, so the movies that we're talking about are very close to me. I was in a production of Annie once. So
how did I not know this?
I hide it a lot.
Oh my God. And you decided to air this out on our podcast. Oh my God. This is so good.
That's about it. Music is the main denominator that I use for everything.
And that's how we know you too. So that makes sense.
I know Jessica and Eric through playing with Danger Inc. and Sad Girls Club and Lousy Advice.
Woo, woo, woo!
And it's so nice because thinking back to playing Sacramento shows 5 years ago when we knew nobody but hardcore bands, and it was just so awful. And so I think we played one show in 8 years, and then we've played like 7 in the last year, which is much better.
Yeah.
Hardcore is still alive and well in Sacramento. I don't know where or how, but it's here.
And it's a lot of the same bands. But yeah, I
name them on the pod. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll say the main band that we played with was a band called Ease, which does not exist anymore.
And what an easy way to so we watched Annie. We didn't say what we watched, but we all watched Annie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we watched Annie.
So motherfuckers, Annie has had many different forms. It's been in film 6 times. So it was in the 30s, there was 2 Annie films. Before that, it was a comic where Annie was a detective that would go and bust Nazi conspiracies and shit. She was a Dick Tracy, Nancy Drew person, which is awesome. And then 1970s, it was turned into another musical and brought to Broadway. And then there was this one, and then there was 4 more after this or something. I don't know. Everybody just wants to remake the same thing. So Annie has a lot of bullshit. But we watched the 1982 one and the 2014 one. Boy, did we.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we did.
Annie was such a... Not only was I, in it... And, my thing that I used to do, I was in serious, or, non-musical plays. And then I would do musicals, but I also liked helping out just with the tech sort of stuff. So I always did, kind of bit parts. So I got to watch a lot of it kind of come together from everything. And just all those songs are so ingrained. And watching the 1980s one over and over and over again during that time. And it's just, Annie just has been this constant fact, another embarrassing thing.
Yes.
In elementary, middle school, I used to collect Pez dispensers before I played music or anything. And was hardcore into it. And the number one and the only one I ever spent $100 on was the Annie one. And it was just Annie was this just nightmare drilled into my head. But I love it a ton. And so it was really cool to revisit the 80s one. I don't have it. I sold all my Pez in 8th grade, I think.
Oh, damn.
Gotta capitalize on that.
I know, I don't miss it, but I miss that one. The rest of them I don't. But so yeah, this was revisiting that. And I had never seen the 2014 one until this week. So.
And you loved it?
I really liked it for different reasons.
Which we will get into in our next segment.
We have so much to talk about, y'all. Let's get into it.
I know, we have so much to do.
On the mean streets of New York City during the Great Depression, class disparity and morale are at an all-time low. Annie, a young optimistic orphan, lives at an orphanage run by an abusive alcoholic named Miss Hannigan. One day, in an attempt to appear more likable with the general public, billionaire Oliver Warbucks and his assistant Grace Farrell go to the local orphanage to pick out a child he can house for a short time.
Annie's charm and optimism ultimately sways the steel heart of Daddy Warbucks while he organizes a search for her parents with a handsome reward attached. Just as he is about to adopt her, Miss Hannigan and her cohorts devise a plan to pose as Annie's parents and take her away for the reward money. Annie catalyzes the New Deal, FDR sings a song, Annie is kidnapped but ultimately saved, there is some outrageously racist scoring and caricature, and there's a big party at the end, and the sun comes out tomorrow.
Okay, so I like you, Alex, loved this growing up, and I watched it quite a bit with my grandma. It was like this, The Secret Garden, all of the Shirley Temple films, and Heidi and shit, right? And I was like, yeah, this is great. And yeah, watching it now was really timely because holy shit, Great Depression, y'all. What's up?
Yeah. Welcome back.
I had no idea that it took place. Okay, I don't remember shit about this movie apparently because I was like also like, wait, that happened? Wait, what's going on? Like, I didn't realize that Warbucks was like, oh, because that's how he makes his money on war.
On
like,
war.
you get it? And I was like, it was weird.
No, I've never seen either Annie, like, because I was also in musical theater like Alex, but I'd never seen Annie. I knew the story to some extent in the same way that, like, I'd never seen Cats, but I knew Memory. I'd never seen Annie, but I knew a couple of the songs from it, some of the iconic ones. I didn't really fully know the story apart from the fact that, like, a young poor orphan goes to live with a billionaire tycoon. So that whole time I was like, what is happening? And then as the story progressed, I was like, what is going? Yeah, it was wild. It is still a cool story, but it definitely was interesting to watch because I had never experienced it before.
Yeah, I remember first seeing this, not if I was in middle school, so I must have been like 10, 11-ish. And definitely, yeah, none of the, I guess, nuance of the jokes came through. And, like, the just skating over, like, the Bolsheviks trying to murder this guy. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's just what happens.
We never talk about it. And we only see it in that one scene, too. It's just like, oh, there's a grenade. Go ahead, do your thing, bodyguard. Like, you know, and I was like, what is happening? And he, like, dances it off.
Yeah, and it's just so bizarre how all these pieces kind of come together. And, like, the big thing, like, I was FDR in the Annie musical, and I forgot how much he was in this movie. I remember him only being in, like, 2 scenes in the movie and, like, just having, like, 1 line, really. But it was very bizarre to see because, like Jessica said, it's very timeless now in a way because it's coming back around, but it's also, yes, so dated and still has some weird charm to it because there's not really a plot besides like the kind of 2 big events that happened. Yeah. And like that's the big thing I came away from it from is like, wow, there's like one sort of subplot, but Annie is really just like hanging around. And I think this is what you get into with like comics like Annie and things like Richie Rich and other things from that era, or Little Lulu, or Popeyes. There's really like one gag, and it's like this one. It's like she's an orphan.
Yeah,
and she hasn't experienced much. Now she does.
Yeah.
Well, and like so much of this, like even though it's called Annie, it's really about Daddy Warbucks, and Annie herself exists as a character only to make other people better. So she is essentially like a moral compass and like leads all of the kids in the orphanage and is like, this is what we should do and this is how we should do this, right? And she's just wants to find her parents and all this other stuff, but like when she enters Daddy Warbucks' life, all of a sudden, oh, he has a conscience, even though he's like pissed off that he has to go to the movies. And I don't know, like she doesn't really get to be a person in her own narrative. Like it's just, she's here. Okay, cool. Like she exists so that way Warbucks can be redeemed is what that felt like. And so, even at the end, he gets to save her with what? All of his wealth and all of his power. Like, this whole thing is just him showing her all of that and then her benefiting from that. It's like the moral of the story feels like money will solve all of your problems and save you whenever you need it.
Yeah.
Also, he's okay in the Great Depression, like $1 was a lot, right? I mean, like just in the 30s in general. And he's like, he's a fucking billionaire in the 30s.
Billionaire.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. And it's so wild, even like the scene where Grace shows up to the orphanage the first time, like you see the crowd of the poors like gathering around and like can barely even fathom the idea of wealth, and like the driver's just like, I don't want to be touched, like all that stuff. You're seeing this huge wealth disparity, but truly $1 was so much at that time, and just it is so bizarre just seeing that huge gap. And I love Annie's optimism throughout, where she's just so unfazed by any of it. Like, it's just, yeah, cool, great, you're rich, that's cool. Anyways, I'm gonna go over here now. Great. And that was sweet, because I like did a little bit of research on just Annie as a character, and I think initially her character within the comics was a lot more like, I don't know the correct term for it, a lot more right-leaning in its politic, just in the way she would deliver the idea of what government should do. She was very much like, I don't want handouts, and everyone should pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and like we all, the reason which rich people are rich it's because they worked hard for it, essentially, right? Like, that was a lot of what her character existed at in the time frame of the comics. So like seeing a more socialist leaning, empathetic version of who that character was in what became the stage play or the musical, and then what became the movie musical, is interesting. At least I thought it was cool. You know?
Yeah, I didn't realize that she was so right leaning. I mean, it's weird because she, like, the way that the character is written in this, she kind of is like, I want to earn my keep, right? She has that line when she first gets to the Warbeck's mansion, and they're like, oh, sweetie, like, whatever, it's fine. My whole job is to make the bed. Like,
yeah.
You know? And she's like laughed off as like, because, you know, there is that whole interaction where it's like the butler is like, I'm not allergic to dogs, I'm allergic to filth. And I was like, what the fuck is all this? And then, like, they were laughing at her when they took her sweater, and she's like, am I going to get that back? And they were like, oh my God, you poor thing. Like,
you poor thing, emphasis on the word poor.
Yeah, for real. I'm allergic to filth. Like, ugh.
Yeah.
But, like, they were trying to say, like, even when, like, 836 couples came to, like, say, I'm Annie's mom and dad. And Mrs. Farrell, Grace, was like, there's just so many dishonest people. She's like, no, they're not dishonest. They're desperate. Like, Annie was calling that out. Annie is, like, so young, but also so aware of the disparity.
Yeah.
And she, even when she's, like, talking to FDR and everything, she's like, cool. Yeah, let's do this. Let's give them jobs. Let's do this. Let's earn this. But, like, yeah, it was really interesting that she wasn't just, because this movie fucking hates Republicans, which I was all about.
Oh, yeah.
I did not remember it being so, like, ugh, Republicans this, or ugh, Democrats this. And I was like, wow, oh my God, what am I watching?
It was wild. I did love those bits. I do want to talk about Bernadette Peters and Tim Curry as the general queer canon of the film.
Yes.
Because I had no idea either one of them was in this movie.
I was so surprised. I was so surprised to see Tim Curry. And I was like, oh, he's just lovely. With his pencil-thin mustache.
Oh my God, it was perfect. And Bernadette Peters, she's iconic, amazing, so good. Like, them together, that whole scene where they're like concocting the plan and like they're dancing up and down the stairs, and like it's like essentially just like a slapstick ballet, which I was so into, because it's like gaggery after gaggery, but they're like doing these perfect synchronized movements, like ducking and like smacking and like slipping, and it was great. I like that whole sequence was so good.
So I guess the whole reason that Tim Curry said he wanted to be in this was because he had like a super militant father who was like an admiral or something in the military, and he wasn't allowed to watch anything except musicals. So he's like, yeah, I want to be an Annie. Like, that was his thing. Like, so
I love that.
He wasn't allowed to watch anything except for fucking musicals and stuff like that. And then he just goes off and has Tim Curry's career. Like, what a badass.
Yeah. Also, what a bizarre punishment for a father to be like, the only media you'll consume is musicals. Like, Okay. Like, go off, I guess. Like, that's fine.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about Annie and how she, like, her whole life is based off of, like, that locket and that, like, letter that, like, will be back for you, and, like, promising that, like, hey, we're coming back, we're doing this. And she essentially stalls her life for that. And she always, like, she has this moral compass, like, I wouldn't do anything a decent person would have done and stuff like that. And I feel like a big reason that she has that motivation is because she's like, oh, well, my parents are decent people, they're gonna come back for me because of this letter, right?
Yeah.
But then that letter ultimately is what holds her back from being who she is and what she needs to be and what she wants to be, and how damaging, like, false promises are, and, like, how people are so drawn to, like, the idea of blood and not found families, like, even back then, obviously, and how damaging that can even be. Like, when you can't recognize the relationships that you have right in front of you because you're holding on to something that maybe isn't there, maybe never was there.
Yeah, I was really surprised with the biggest detail that I had forgotten was Mrs. Hannigan very quickly glossing over the plot detail of her parents dying. And I don't think I'd even registered that originally. And it's so bizarre, not only that Annie is so stalled by it, but Mrs. Hannigan, who, you know, deep down maybe this really nice person, but her goal seems to be to remove the joy from these kids and make them as kind of drone-like as possible. And yet she holds on to that one thing that could make Annie just crushed and just be totally just kind of belligerent, which is saying, like, they're not coming back. This is why. But yeah,
I never
Annie,
even thought of that. Wow.
Yeah, and it's weird because the only time you see Mrs. Hannigan, at least in the 1982 one, have any sort of emotion is defending Annie from Brewster, which is just, you know, purely to stop murder as a very bad crime. not like it's like, oh, we were going to extort this poor child and send her to die somewhere else, but direct murder, no.
Yeah, she's fine, like, beating the shit out of kids. She is fine, like, gaslighting them. She is fine at, like, verbally abusing them. But, oh, wait, you're gonna do a murder? No, we don't do that. We just, like to play psychological games,
exactly.
Not, like...
and yeah, it's weird that, yeah, Annie, she's so hyper stalled by this, and it's interesting how she seems to be giving all of her kind of energy and hope because she feels like, oh, I'm set, I don't need to think about what's around me. She's become this weird, like, motivator for the other orphans as well. It kind of also goes back to what we're talking about like her being the character that Daddy Warbucks builds off of, is like the other orphans build off her too and kind of suck the energy out of her.
I guess in that same way, Miss Hannigan does too, right? Because if she had crushed Annie, she knows that she's the morale of the orphanage, and she needs that conflict, just like she needs to be horny for everybody, right? Like she fucking needs her, like, programs or whatever. But, like, her character thrives on conflict, right?
Yeah.
And without that, like, remnant of hope, I guess. Yeah, I didn't think about any of that, but, like, yeah, she wouldn't have any conflict, and then she would have already, like, crushed those girls, and she needs that conflict, right? Because that's what's comfortable and that's what's known.
I want to argue something, not necessarily the opposite, but just like a counter perspective, only because I forget what song it was, but it's a song where she's, like, drinking and going to room, which, again, most of her character in this movie, but she's like, she's
fucking bathing in vodka.
Yeah, she's not just complaining about the kids, but she's kind of complaining about her life, like how did I end up here? How is this my life? I could have been so many other things. I could have done so much more. What has my life become? Part of me thinks that she doesn't have the emotional capacity to, when given the information that Annie's parents were dead, to deliver that news in any sort of productive way, even though she is this mean, resentful, very bitter person towards these kids. Part of me wonders if, like, she didn't choose to give that news because she didn't know how, because of possibly maybe stilted adolescence of some kind where like she doesn't really know how to deal with conflict herself. So how can she deal with delivering this kind of conflict in that way? So I don't know. That sort of bled into my thought process a little bit with her. Even though she is mean and vindictive, there are these sort of airs of, I mean, I hate to say misunderstanding because she's just an asshole, but...
Well, I think more than anything, she's a victim of cyclical abuse, right? Because we also see that because they make a point to say that Rooster, Tim Curry, right, is her brother, and they're both the same. They're both kind of skeezy. They're both trying to make a dollar however they can, the whole thing. But I think that they both are just like they're scheming on each other, and they just kind of expect that. So I think maybe like this is. She's just a victim of cyclical abuse. And she obviously doesn't have any sort of support system or anything. And her way of dealing with that, especially in like, because she's obviously very poor and stuff like that, is by just trying to fuck everybody, like using her, she exploits the children and also her sexuality to survive and to get what she needs and what she wants. That's apparent with her, again, trying to fuck everybody and, like, trying to fuck the cop, right? Who's just, like, totally, like, I'm not even going to go into that because that's nuts. But, like, when Daddy Warbucks goes and he's just like, oh, I want to sign these papers. I want Annie. And she's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. And he, like, has to say, like, oh, they're going to find somebody else for this orphanage, or like they have to threaten her job to be like, oh, no. It's okay. It's okay. You can take whatever you can take Annie. That's fine. But like, I think actually thinking about it, both Grace and Warbucks both say like, hey, I'm going to take your fucking job if you don't give me what I want. Because without her job, she would be on the street like everybody else.
I think that dips into the conversation about class then, right? Because there's this conversation about working class being like, you're disposable, you can be replaced. So that's like incentivized threat towards the working class to say like, you will lose your job, you will be replaced, and you won't find a new one. Whereas this literal billionaire, these like people who don't think about money as any sort of real factual commodity or something that is of risk to them, just kind of being like, yeah, it doesn't matter, obviously. But this person who's obviously struggling, obviously an addict, obviously poor and broken and just completely desolate in this moment of a job she hates. It's a job she fucking hates. She hates being there. Nothing about the environment she's in she enjoys. She has a whole song about it, right?
Little girls.
But even on right, even in the moment of where that job is about to not exist for her, she can't lose that because she's so poor and she has no other option.
It's really interesting because like now that we're talking about this, it's like there's so many more poor people in this film, and we get such a better picture of that, having to do things that you don't want to do in order to survive and things like that. And then we also see Annie, who's like we're poor, but we're doing the right thing because that's just what we do. That's just the right thing to do. I'm going to save this dog. I'm going to do this, right? Which is really sweet. But then, we have like that contrast with Miss Hannigan and her brother. But then, like, the rich people are only doing good to be seen, and they also don't need to pay attention to things, and they don't notice things or the impact that they have because that doesn't directly affect their everyday life.
Yeah, it is an interesting take on just performative empathy or performative goodness.
I think that goes into, like, even Annie exhibits it at times. Like, she has an entire song about the dog being, this dumb dog. And it's kind of like, why are you following me around? I don't need you. And then the moment it's about to be taken away, she's like, no, it's my dog. But it's like such a weird character shift that it feels like she doesn't even think about it until there's like other people there. And suddenly she's like, oh God, what do and then she's totally fine with it suddenly.
Yeah, and that also kind of plays into when she has Warbucks, right? And she's like, well, I want to find my parents. And then, like, I want to shout out because I thought this was, like, the best fucking thing about Warbucks was when he's, like, kind of, like, popping the question to her, do you want to be my daughter? And she's like, no, I want to find my parents, right? And then rather than being like, well, I already signed the papers and all that other stuff, he was like, okay, I'm going to help you do that. I understand. And we don't usually get that in like the 80s, in the early 80s. So that kind of took me off guard. But yeah, so when she is like, I want to find my parents, she finds her parents. And in that moment, when she like looks over and she's like, oh, okay. Like she takes a deep breath and she's like, all right, fine. And then she leaves. But she realizes in that moment that what she wanted was she had all along. You know, like she was searching for something, like she didn't understand what she had until it was almost gone or taken away. So like you were saying with like Sandy, right? Like she was like, dumb dog, I don't need you. I don't need all this stuff. And then like when the guy's going to take her, she's like, oh, no. This is not going to happen. I need this dog.
Exactly. And like you see that an even further extent with Miss Hannigan and Rooster at the very end of like the moment when Annie is about to be removed completely from Earth and a plane of existence. You see her kind of have that compassion, and it's hinted at because of her response with everything throughout the movie of her unwillingness to give up Annie without providing a real concrete reason. And then you sort of see that come about of, yeah, you don't know what you have until it's almost gone or gone. Almost every character learns that except Rooster, I think.
Yeah, he's like the irredeemable one.
He's like the best kind of like NPC. Like he's awful and horrible in the cutscenes, but like right after the kids break out of that, like into the stairwell where they're at, and they have to funnel them back in, and he pushes one to the closet, and she just grabs his glasses, and he's just like, oh, okay, and then just closes the door. It's like, I guess those are gone now.
Yeah,
doesn't try to do anything, and just like, whatever.
Oh, that's good.
I think that's a great way, like great thing we kind of talked about of like it's kind of like the film has like two definitions of rich, like monetarily rich and then kind of like emotionally fulfilled richness that you only sort of realize once it's really displayed to you in full.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, truly. I mean, even just that scene right at the end when Annie's getting ready to leave with her fake parents. And Daddy Warbucks is essentially like, here, take all these clothes, take all these dresses, take everything. She's like, I don't need it. But you know who does need it? All of my friends who are also poor. Like, you see this moment. She's like literally seeing richness. She's seeing this monetary wealth. She's seeing these physical things that make up the wealth that we see that Warbucks has. And she's just dispersing that and saying, well, I don't need all this. I'll take this one maybe. But Denise would look great in this. Carrie would look great in this. She would be great at, like, you know what I mean? She's like thinking about others in this way that is, you see that kindness. You see her wealth of spirit, essentially, her wealth of kindness, as opposed to the wealth that Warbucks is seeing. And I think all these characters, like Warbucks, throughout the film, he's also seeing that within her, which is why he didn't like make a big deal about the signed papers thing. And in that moment, he's kind of like, okay, yeah, cool. Like,
well, and she's also like super aware of like wealth and how people respond to that too. She's like, my parents, they don't have a lot of money, and I don't want to take this stuff back because I don't want them to feel inadequate. Also, there's other people that need this more than I do, you know? So she's aware of how those things affect other people.
Yeah, she has that level of empathy that everybody else, for the most part in this story, doesn't have. You know, I think the only other people in this who you could arguably say have that are a couple of her friends at the orphanage. Oh, and then, what's her name?
The secretary, Grace?
Yes, the person who I had to look up her name before the same way. So she's the only other person, I think, apart from Annie and the kids, that you could argue has some sort of level of empathy, because she generally feels like can discern between the goodness and the badness of everything, even though in these moments where like he's dictating like, you need to do this and you need to do this, and she's like, yes, you can see kind of the sternness of her reaction to it, that this is just a job. But in those moments of softness and tenderness with Annie, you see her sort of respond and react in a way that is caring and understanding and compassionate, that almost every other character does not have. Everyone is just selfish to a certain extent, very singular-minded in a selfish way. Is what I wanted to say.
Well, yeah, absolutely, truly. I mean, at least until the end, right? Because like Daddy Warbucks goes from being, I am a businessman, I love money, I love power, I love capitalism, and orphans are only boys, I want a boy, to being like, let me be your daddy. Oh, you don't want me to be your daddy? Okay, I'll help you find your people. I'll help them. Don't worry, I got you.
And I know that generally the story, like at the end, there's like this general whimsical sense of inclusion. But why the fuck was Miss Hannigan at that party?
Okay, and why the fuck was she like? Because I saw her on the elephant and Punjab and her looking at each other longingly, and it was like, this is the most stupid racist shit I have ever seen.
I know.
It's so weird because you see we'll get to the 2014 one later, but in both endings, the biggest problem I have is Annie, goes through all this, and then at the end, the movie, the attitude of the movie is fuck those other orphans, I guess.
Yeah.
Are they adopted by Oliver Warbucks? Because they're all there in better clothing, but do they just go back to the orphanage after that? And then it's oh, remember that time when our friend got all that money for a week? Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. No, truly.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah. Let's, while we're on the subject of the tokenization of people of color in this film, let's talk about, so there was Punjab who was very Middle Eastern mysticism, the whole thing.
Yeah.
He was literally only there to entertain Annie. And the little girls that come to save Annie, they're a person of color faint. And I was why? And then and I forget the other character's name, but it was something also just incredibly insensitive. And he did his martial arts thing.
And he taught karate lessons.
Yeah.
So, so what's also bizarre? So if we're going to just talk about Punjab by himself, the name, that's like calling somebody California.
Yes.
But in a way, because Punjab is a state. It's like a nation state. It's the name of a place. But we're getting so non-specific and sort of erasure about a place of existence. They don't have a name. Just call them where they're from. It's fine. Let's move on. Which is just cool.
Y'all.
Then we gotta love that really fun choice of composition whenever they would appear on screen. The music would change.
Yeah.
Gotta love it.
Even in the We Got Annie song, the motif shifts to what would probably in that be labeled as Oriental kind of vibe, because you have the kind of xylophone lead of the da 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 kind of overtone, and it's they're so ambiguous. Even with Punjab, there's an overarching Middle Eastern Indian kind of aspect, but he's just kind of everything from that. Do you have Asian and Punjab?
And I'm gonna quote Gandhi, okay,
yeah, and he sort of talks in kind of a French accent at times, and it's kind of, they were just he'll do magic.
Yeah.
Why include that? And then to pair off people at the end, so many movies do, right? But to pair off the person of color with one of the worst people in the entire film, who's probably going to be abusive and be just a terrible, terrible person to this person. I saw that and I was like, cool, she's finally going to get dick. Cause she was just ugh. I hate it.
It was all around fucked. And also just the fact that this actor is, he's just a black actor. You know what I mean? A black actor playing something else is sort of the ambiguity of generalized people of color. Oh, well, you don't look white, so you can play pretty much anything else as long as we throw an accent on you. And you're cool, so let's just erase every other existing person on this earth who's not white. That's sick. Let's do that, Which is just silly. And it also just is so bizarre. They not just say, take out all minorities from this movie, but neither one of those characters had anything to do here. They were literally there's just the scene where Punjab is levitating the plane, so he's magic, but we're not going to talk about that because he's othered and he's magical. He's from a magical place. Cool, we're just going to be racist Western society viewing this. Sick, got it. And then the driver who for no reason other than his appearance, we're adding the martial arts aspect and all this stuff. It's just like, it's
well, they were both like bodyguards, so they were protecting a rich white man, but
even that, like,
even more fucked.
Yeah, exactly. Because to me, I'm like, okay, well, there's something to be said about like class disparity tied to race and sort of inequity and systemic racism, right? Like you can have that conversation there, but even within it, like, I mean, obviously they're not going to get into that. Like that's not something that I think any of them are willing to talk about in this, but like they have nothing to do. And then the moments where as a viewer, we see them doing something, it's something that is so incredibly insensitive and shitty and like the most tropic version of a racial stereotype with the backtrack to the action itself. Like, fuck off. Like,
do you know when they're going to talk about that? They're going to talk about that tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Okay. Speaking of tomorrow, I know the song in general, and I don't know if like this is the general whimsy of the song or the general like theme of the song. Is this song just about fucking false hope?
I think it's supposed to be about hope, right? Because it comes out of like the whole like FDR's like, we're going to start the National Park Service and we're going to give people jobs and we're going to create infrastructure and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And we're like, just if we just keep on doing it, that the next day will be better. But yeah, I guess like, I mean,
because part of me, I never realized that the song was tied to a scene with literally FDR, because I had no idea FDR was in this like story. But like the fact that they're there and she's like, you know what I do whenever I'm like sad? I sing. And then she starts singing. And then it's like, essentially they're like, how are we going to fix this? And the theme of the song just feels like tomorrow we'll fix it. We'll fix it. It's like this sort of like misguided mislead of like, don't worry about it now. Let's just be happy now. Let's not confront things that are bad now. We'll worry about it tomorrow because tomorrow's a new day to worry about that. Tomorrow's a new day to fix. Tomorrow's a new day to be better. So why do that now? And so to see this young girl who, again, I'm not faulting Annie in this at all, but to see her then chorused by these rich politicians who are like, yeah, let's fix the poor people tomorrow. Let's do that. Let's not worry about it today. Why would we do anything for anybody else today? I was like,
well, because they never actually establish it, right? They talk about it, but they never fucking do it in the movie. You're right.
And so for me, I was like, this is just the anthem of false hope. Situationally, like seeing that song tied to that, I was like, this is all weird.
I was just really stuck on FDR talking about teaching Annie how to use a wheelchair because it's like his own personal roller coaster. I was just stuck on that for a hot minute.
Woo, woo.
So
able-bodied folks are wild.
Man, fucking God damn it. In the musical, on the last night, the wheelchair like got stuck and like took down part of the set with it.
Oh no!
To go on for like the last scene, and it's definitely not a roller coaster. It definitely is not as exciting as it seems. But I wanted to say, like, tomorrow also for me not only is like this false hope thing, but it's so like, oh, today already sucks, but at least tomorrow there'll be this thing that I can sort of count on as like the weather, and have such like a low hope expectation, like not only like false hope, but just be like, tomorrow the sun will come out, and I'll like, that's as low of a bar as I am willing to set for myself.
Yeah.
Now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, just thinking about tomorrow and how it'll be just as shitty as every other day.
Yeah.
Which I guess to a certain extent, I will argue that like that's kind of beautiful in a way where you're like just you're grounded, you're self-centered. It feels very zen, very, very present, right? Like, well, tomorrow this thing will happen. I can count on that and I can focus on that. So I think the only reason I'm like, this is a false hope thing is because of situationally where it's tied. The song itself, lyrically, I'm like, yeah, like I get that. And especially coming from somebody who comes from so little, right? Like Annie, who has nothing. She's an orphan. She's sad. Like, to be like, because in my head, I thought this took place at the orphanage and she was like singing it out the window. And it's just sort of like, tomorrow's going to be like, tomorrow they'll come. Tomorrow I'll have a family. Tomorrow I'll have opportunity. Tomorrow's that thing. I was like, hell yeah. But the fact that she's singing it in the Oval Office with FDR, I mean, like, tomorrow we're going to help the poors. I'm like, oh my God. Like, it just situationally, that changed the effect of the song, I guess.
Yeah, 8,000%. Like now that like, cause I wasn't even like thinking about it being tied to the Oval Office and like that whole exchange. Cause I was like, I like was like writing down furiously like everything that they were saying. Cause like, what the fuck? Like, this is right now Republicans versus Democrats. This is what's happening. Right. But like, I'm also like the optimist too. So I'm like, tomorrow's going to be okay. And so, like, when she started singing that, I was like, yeah, change the subject, and let's talk about something else. Like, it's okay. Yeah. It's going to be fine. Just, you got to do it. But yeah, like, for sure, false hope. Tomorrow is going to be okay. So, I don't know if you guys know this, but John Huston was the director for this, and he did like a bunch of like other weird movies. He's like a rich white guy, and he was chosen to direct this because of how his similarities to Daddy Warbucks. So, because they wanted it to be a little bit gritty, and it resulted in the people that wrote the musical fucking hating it. And so, how different is this from the musical? Because I've never seen it. I've never been in it. I've never.
I do know in a lot of the musical productions, they do actually start with Annie singing Tomorrow instead of Maybe out of the window. Oh. Or at least like as the musical starts, she's singing it, and then it transitions into you see her and she's singing Maybe.
Oh.
And in that, it has a lot more resonance. I think in the musical, because like I'm on this like conversion dollar thing. And yeah, so he was worth like $30 billion in today's money. And I think it's a little more downplayed in the musical. It's a little less like FDR owes him and is like indebted to him. It's more like FDR just like asking for like advice on ideas instead of like, I need you to build all these things. And I think he's a little more of a side character. The musical is definitely more like Annie and everyone else.
Got it.
That feels a little bit better.
Also, Rooster, I just looked up, they would have been paid in the equivalent of $942,000.
Ooh.
For that, which is weird because they're like, we could buy her milk and a blanket.
Yeah.
For $942,000.
But to be fair, it is a blanket and milk from Goop. So
that's true.
So
it's true.
Yeah.
That would be upwards of I think $25,000. Just easy base level right there. Yeah.
Yo, did you see that? Like, this is the 1930s, right? Where the fuck did that cell phone come from in that car? That big giant like purse-sized cell phone. Did you catch that, Eric?
I did now.
Oh man,
it's like Grace is using it in that like chase scene, right?
Yeah. It was like I was like, what the fuck? And it's like all caps, like, where did they get a cell phone?
That's how rich he was, though. He had a prototype 5 decades previous. He was set. He was the first one. There were moments that I forgot that it was taking place at the first half of the century, as opposed to just in 82.
1,000%, yeah.
Yeah, because I think even the cityscape, there's just a shot of some buildings. I was like, that looks like 80s New York City.
Yeah,
and it's like it's the 30s, and I'm like, oh.
So this was filmed in New Jersey, and New Jersey's governor signed a law that allowed children to, in the cast, to work at night because they weren't allowed to work. I think it was like past 11:30 p.m., but for a lot of those night shots, they had to go all the way in. So Annie changed child labor laws in New Jersey.
Yay.
Woo!
Yay.
Go off.
Work
those kids to the bone. JK LOL. Child labor laws are real. Y'all don't fuck with that. I just wanted to say how good some of the choreography was.
It was great. I loved it.
It was great. The Hard Knock Life sequence, every moment, like it was so good. Like, them throwing plates at each other was perfect. The pillows were great. Like, it was so rehearsed, so well produced. I was like, yes. I don't know, because like with a lot of these new musicals, or like it's the film remake of a musical, but like modern, like Les Mis or Cats or whatever. A lot of this shit, you can kind of tell like they're just getting big name stars, not like theater kids or theater actors. And I feel like in this Annie, a lot of these kids, like, they know how to fucking dance. They can somersault, they can flip, they can do, like, just the talent was so sick. It was so good.
Well, they also, like, because there's 12 kids that they're trying to coordinate this whole thing with, and like if one of them fucks up or something, even if it's like the main person, like that just added to a little bit of the realness of that. Like it was just, it was so much more charming because they missed a step, or because like maybe they had to like pull their hair out of their face or something. But like it felt so much less produced is not the word. I forget.
Yeah, it just felt more organic.
Yeah.
Apparently, I'm just reading into Eileen Quinn, the actor who played Annie. She has a band called Eileen Quinn and the Leapin' Lizards.
Ooh.
I love that.
Go off, Eileen Quinn.
They've released 2 albums, one as of November of last year.
What? Really?
Wow. So it's a current thing.
Okay, I'm going to look this up.
I bet they're rockabilly. I bet.
Oh my god. Oh my god. You guys, okay, when you were watching the whole like let's go to the movies sequence, right? Before the movie even starts, there's like 50 dancers and the whole thing. Were you guys also watching that and like, oh, this is what the Academy Award still thinks it is? Like this is what like
yeah.
It's a lot of that sort of inside self-congratulatory New York shit.
Yeah.
Like, not to knock that, but like a lot of New York folks and people, like just the idea of New York is so like, I'm from New York and this is New York. Anyways, you know, this is New York. You're like, yeah, I know. Like,
I get it.
Great. They got the fucking Rockettes to do the pre-sequence to a movie, which makes sense because he's a billionaire. So I'm like, oh yeah, it just adds to the effect of that. But
wait, did you actually know that they were rockabilly, or was that just a guess?
That was a full guess.
You're right, 100%.
Okay, so here's the thing. You can't have a name like first name and the somethings.
You're right.
Without it being like rock and roll, and oftentimes with big boomer energy and rock and roll, it's going to be something rockabilly adjacent, whether it's Chris Isaac rockabilly or like fucking Stray Cats rockabilly. It's going to be one of those. They're going to fall into one of the camps. And either way, they're all going to be on the same bill. So we're going to have a great time. But good for her. In present-day New York City, Annie, an optimistic foster kid, hopes to one day reunite with her parents after being abandoned some years before. One day, Will Stacks, a billionaire phone entrepreneur with political aspirations, saves Annie from getting hit by a van. A video circulates online, and his campaign decides to use Annie as a prop to make Stacks more likable to positively influence his political career.
Stack's assistant, Grace Farrell, fetches Annie from her foster mom, Miss Hannigan, and is whisked away into a gallant New York apartment. Enraged by the newfound fame young Annie is getting, and in an attempt to further capitalize on positive political optics of their new arrangement, Stax's campaign strategist, Guy, and Miss Hannigan devise a plan to fake a reunion of Annie and her parents. The plan fails, Annie is saved, and after several terrible musical moments, Annie's hard knock life is over, and the sun comes out tomorrow.
Whee!
This movie was, I really wanted to like it because I was like, cool, a new take, cool, more inclusivity, cool, all this other stuff. But
half the movie.
Yeah. I mean, it was not good. I will say fully, I do love Quvenzhané Wallace. Her performance is great. I did love her. And I love, oh my God, Rose Byrne. Give that woman an award. God damn it. She's so good. I love her so much. She was Grace. She, to me, I don't know. I feel like she does so well with any sort of genre. She's great in comedy. She's great in drama. She's great in musical comedy. She's great in musical.
I don't
love
know if
her.
I'd ever seen her in anything, but I mean, she was good in this. This was this felt like watered down Disney TV Annie to me. Like, it was significantly less gritty, which is good and stuff, but it just felt more like polished and more safe. Like, it felt more like that's why I'm like, this is more Disney.
Yeah, it's decom Annie for sure.
Yeah. Okay, can we start with my biggest problem? How they made Annie's whole character struggle be that she can't read, but she starts off the film by reading the note that her parents gave her. I understand that they wanted to talk about literacy, and they wanted to talk about things like how the foster care system is broken and how maybe as like a person of color, it's harder like to get better schooling or whatever they were trying to say. They did not say it well. And to make her whole like fit about like not being able to read, it felt like they didn't set it up at all. Like, even though they like, okay, cool, instead of doing an essay, I did this, look, now we're gonna clap our hands and now we're gonna do this, and then like, well, I can't read. I don't know, they did not set it up well, and
I think you're super on it. Every idea that had anything to do with something that was compelling in a sort of socio-eco, like something that like, when we're talking about personal struggle, any one of those moments fell flat so hard. Like, it just felt so like, what? Like, really? Like that opening scene where she's like, now you guys, like you said, you guys clap and you guys are like the rich, and then everyone be like, wah, I'm hungry, and ba-da-ba-ba-ba, that's my essay, FDR, and we're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like, it felt so underbaked. Even just structurally and narratively, it was not good. Yeah, it didn't work. The writing wasn't great either. Like, some of these actors really had to...
were not great. And a lot of it, like, felt like, oh, we could do this. Like, this is what we're going to do. Like, some of the jokes they tried to say, like, oh, fuck, what was it? When they're trying to figure out what to name the dog, and they were like, we should name it after a hurricane.
Sandy?
And she's like, Sandy. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, that's your thing?
know.
That's your thing? And then they're like, oh, Miss Hannigan was just like a washed up person that was part of the CNC Music Factory. And then she was also a groupie for this band that nobody knows. And then, oh yeah, also like, and it starts off with like the redheaded girl, like, you know, reading her essay and stuff like that. And they're like, like, there's so many moments where it's like, psh, Annie sucks. Like, it's like they're throwing mad shade on the original Annie, which, like, okay, whatever, that's fine. But it felt like the film was written around those bad jokes and those like, oh, wouldn't this be cool? Wouldn't this be cool? That's great. Okay. I wanted to like it. I really did. But like,
well, the only thing about this that I like fully liked and appreciated was the blind casting. I thought that was great. Like, yes, let's have a story that's inclusive. Let's not like, it's not a conversation like, this is the Black Annie. It's just a new version of Annie with a blind cast. Like, but write a better story.
Yeah, I think the issue you have especially is like, they tried to downplay it as a musical a little bit and remove the musical aspects a bit. But then you're left with not much of a plot, really. And I think you have the same issues that you had in the last one, but at this point, like, they try to subsidize it. Like, in the 1982, you have Mr. Bundles, the laundry guy. But then you have Lou, who is like Mr. Bundles, but the entire movie he's there. But he doesn't serve any purpose besides to be, like, the one person that Miss Hannigan, like, isn't interested in, but, you know, he's the nice guy and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, everything's kind of like that one-liner gag that just keeps being repeated. And, you know, he's like, do you want to make a key? I don't actually know how to make keys. Oh, I knew this kind of I knew this helicopter because I read it right there.
Let's change the dates on that milk and that orange juice. It's fine, right?
Yeah.
And then also cell phones. Like they know everything about. They make him this conspiracy theorist, and then they like fucking
it's like
validate him.
The people that think 5G is like the coronavirus cause.
Word up.
But I think Yeah, I really agree that it fell really flat, and like I messaged Jessica like right when he spat the potatoes back in that guy's face, and I was like, "This is great. This is really funny." And then it went way downhill after that.
Yeah,
it really did.
But yeah, it's just everyone is so one-dimensional. If he's a germaphobe, that's all he is. But then he just kind of gets over it randomly, even though it's something he's clearly been his whole life. He's just suddenly okay with like eating disgusting food, and like the changes are just weird. And then you still have like vague semblances of every character. Like you have Nash, his driver, acting the same way as Punjab, kind of, in like he's just like the kind of stereotypical like sassy guy.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's his character trait. Like, that's it.
Yeah, this whole thing, I was just like, it felt like it was trying to be like, here, it's Annie, the modern day, but like they didn't really give a lot of thought into it. It's like, it was just like comparison. So like, okay, this is what this person would look like today.
Yeah.
So everything is about celebrity and everything. So we're going to use social media, and we're going to use cell phones as a, you know, like also look at, there's a cell phone tower in the Statue of Liberty. Why did we need to see why did we need to see that? And
yeah.
Like there's, it was really frustrating how they did that. And then like, cool, we had this like New York apartment, right? And it just has a lot of TVs. Like, there's a bunch of TVs in the room. Like, so It looks like you're in space. Okay.
And it's like, he's definitely rich, but I think part of the charm of Warbucks is he is so exceedingly rich, especially like in the sense of what Annie's seeing. It's just mind-blowing, like all the servants. And then you see Stax, and he's like, a rich, like that's a very nice apartment, but it's still like a New York apartment.
Yeah.
And it's still like, there's a lot more of people like him. He seems less unique. And then the fact that you remove every character around him besides Grace, you just have like, where's the likability suddenly?
Yeah, and like his whole struggle in this one wasn't like, because the other Warbeck's character was surrounded by people and always making decisions and always doing all this stuff, right? And he's just kind of like afraid of people, but more specifically, he's afraid of poor people is how I read it, because like when he's like helping to feed people, he spits the fucking mashed potatoes. Who spits out mashed potatoes? Mashed potatoes are delicious. Spits it out at this guy. That bad.
I didn't get if it was because it tasted awful or if it was like a germaphobe thing, but like they were just cooked. Like you could be bland, but not like bad.
Yeah. Well, and then like, so while he's in the car, he's got all the hand sanitizer and stuff, or like when somebody comes up to the window, even though they're on the other side, he's trying to clean it. Like, so I felt like there was a correlation between poor people and filth, that sort of thing. So anytime he was around that, and then like Lou comes up and Miss Hannigan, and he's like, no, thank you. I do not like, so they made the joke about them being prostitutes, right? And I was just like, okay, like this whole thing is, and I gotta feed hobos. I was like, how? I can't right now.
Yeah.
And you see that kind of when Annie makes the food, you know, with no culinary idea what she's doing, and just kind of throwing it. Like she throws, it was like a steak, half a pomegranate, and like 3 other things, and like just cooks it all. Yeah. And like he spits it out, and then you kind of see his opinion slowly change in that moment of her a little bit. And it's kind of like what you were saying of like, he cleans it all because he's afraid of like poorness, and he spits it out because it's related to that. And then he sort of like with Annie in that moment spits it out because it's like, ugh, gross. Not only is it disgusting, but like it's made by this person he's not really close to. But then he gets more attached to her in that moment and eats it again. Yeah. Even though it's disgusting and knows that, and then just spits it out again. But he loses that concept for like half a minute.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like that in that moment they were trying to do that rapid growth thing where you're not seeing a sort of gradual growth of a character, or like you're not seeing sort of a more empathetic version of this character as we continue. Except in this one moment, it's like, cool, here's the growth scene. Just he cooks. Oh, and now they're friends, and now he wants to adopt her the next day, and you're like, no, it doesn't happen like that, y'all.
Yeah. And I feel like he didn't earn his growth and they didn't earn the relationship that they tried to force. So, like, the next day almost, like, she's, like, at this dinner and sings this song, right? And then it's like, okay, cool, now read this. And then she, like, storms off. I was like, this, like, and he's trying to doctor and stuff. I was like, this doesn't, like, none of this feels like it means anything because you didn't earn the emotional attachment. You were trying to tell me how I should feel. You're not showing me how these characters have grown.
Yeah, no, I think that level of shallow development is so emblematic of something that is targeted for kids. Whereas the other Annie felt more like a movie, and it's like, whatever. This one felt like Jojo Siwa produced. You know what I mean? In a way that's just like so simple and silly and like it felt like this movie had no substance.
Well, and again, you had, like, the character of Annie, their whole motivation is to make Stax grow. It's not to, like, her thing, even when she, like, finds her parents and is, like, taken to New Jersey and Brazil, like, she's off on her journey, right? like, Stax knows a fucking scam. He knows a scam. What the fuck?
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. It all felt so, yeah, like, really dull.
I do want to bring something up that I don't know how possible this is, but when they're interviewing Stax about how he's running for office, he says, "Great is all I know, and that's what I want to do with the city. I want to make it great again."
Oh, yeah, I caught that.
Oh, I did not catch that.
And so if we're looking at a timeline for when Trump announced his presidential bid, it was 6 months after this movie came out. And for a sucker who is obsessed with ego-driven media, like he loves to see himself on TV, loves to consume story and media and sort of that. I wonder if he saw this and was like, I want to be like Stax.
Or his campaign manager who is actually in this movie. Like,
oh, truly. Well, because I did a little research on just the phrasing of it. And I think that the phrase itself, like, make America great again, was a Reagan. It was used during the presidential bid for Reagan's campaign and then used again with Clinton's campaign in a smaller capacity. So it's something that's like been reiterated as a way, like, let's take back whatever, like semantics and all that. But just its usage and it's sort of the way that it has gained so much popular traction in a big way. I'm like, well, that wasn't even a phrase that had been uttered probably for the last 15 years, assuming Bill Clinton was the last one to use it. Then almost verbatim, we're getting that from this billionaire New York mogul turned politician. And in that moment, he uses this phrase. I wonder if the Trump campaign or somebody within Trump's administration saw that and was essentially like, he's got a good point. Like, he could run on that. That's a great slogan, you know?
He is a businessman running for office.
Truly. He's like a business, New York, like Trump is New York or was affiliated, or that how he wanted to be seen in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? That's where he was. So it's hard for me not to compare the two. And just the fact that, like, I mean, it's not fact, but like, y'all are getting your shit from the new Annie, go off. Like, if that isn't emblematic of exactly where these people's heads are at, then like, fucking girl, bye. Like, too much. Oh, it's too much. But yeah, so that was terrible.
Yeah, that was real bad.
Also, speaking of terrible, it has nothing to do, again, with, I think, the content of the movie, apart from Cameron Diaz's performance was bad. Like, it was horrible. Not good.
Yeah.
It was categorically awful.
Yeah. Like, first of all, like, she's a joke of a character, and she's also a joke of an actor in this film.
I mean, yeah, and it's so bizarre to me because I'm like, if we're looking at this performance by itself, not comparing it to any other actor, this is like first night for an improv troupe's first performance. She's like, I'm going to act drunk and hate kids, and like, one take, go. And like, that's her performance. That's what I'm getting. It's like so unfleshed out. It's so fake. It's so fraudulent. It's so silly. But comparing something like that to like Carol Burnett of the last one, who is like this queen of slapstick and comedy, this genius as far as like physicality and performance and stuff. And you're watching this person like pouring gin into the bathtub and just drinking, and that whole like it just, there was so much nuance, like artistic nuance in Carol Burnett's performance that was just obliterated by Cameron Diaz feeling like she didn't give a shit, like, which was, I mean, again, not really expecting a whole lot, but I mean, I was hoping there'd be a little better. Like,
yeah, I think you have a lot of that with every, like, especially her portrayal of Miss Hannigan, where none of them, I don't know if it's just the lack of a good character development in the script, but none of them, the characters seem committed to anything.
No,
because not only are they just kind of like, you know, we've been talking about one kind of general stereotype, like with her, it's just like, I'm drunk and that's it. But they all give it up so quickly. Like with her, she sells out Annie and then is like, oh shit, that was bad. And instantly that's it. Her trait is gone.
Yeah.
And that happens with Guy, I guess his name was, the campaign manager, like comparing him to Rooster. He is this terrible guy, but the moment Stax is like, you know, those aren't Annie's parents, we're going to go get them. He's like, oh, okay, I'll follow, even though I just got fired. I'm just going to kind of wander beyond. Yeah. It's like, oh, there goes my plan, whatever, who cares? And like Rooster was committed until the very end. And even Miss Hannigan, like we talked about earlier, like murder was what stopped her. With this one, it's like something that was just kind of like guilt, like morally questionable. And I think this comes from the fact of like, these characters don't have really intense opinions to begin with, because in the first one, you see Warbucks have, like, the first thing you see of him is he gets a photo taken of him and he destroys that camera and shoves a guy and is like, oh, oops, I'll buy a new one. But Stax, like, the first thing you see is he saves this kid and then becomes kind of a not great guy. But then it's kind of flip-flops a lot. It's like they can't make up their mind of, like, who's actually bad, who's good. Whereas the other one, it's really defined even though they evolve.
Well, and a lot of that, too, is, like, the only reason that Miss Hannigan in this one started to feel bad was because Annie said she had a good voice. Like, it wasn't the character grew because of any sort of action or had any sort of moral compass. It was that she got validation from, she got, like, validation on her voice, something that she felt wronged about by this kid. And she's like, oh, well, she likes me. Because it's not enough that Lou likes her, right? And is, like, pining for her affections. And who knows why, because she's horrible to him, right? But, like, it's that, oh, somebody thinks that I'm okay, so that's okay. So I'm gonna be nice because somebody was nice to me. Yeah, she didn't earn any of that growth.
It's like she's owed it first.
Yeah, it was all about her. Even what she did in the end wasn't about, like, not harming this kid. It was about her. CNC Music Factory, y'all.
Oh my god. So I will say that joke was kind of funny only because they famously got caught for not singing their own music.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So historically, CNC Music Factory got caught because they put out this album. They didn't credit the singers, and they claimed that they had sung these songs.
Oh, shit.
So she, in this narrative, is claiming that she's one of the singers who wasn't credited. So because of that, I was kind of like, all right, that's kind of fun. Like, she was the one who lost that on that bid, which I'm like, all right, like, I'll get, that's cute. It was cute. It was cute. It wasn't great. It was cute. You know,
but then the weird thing is, like, it removes the reasoning of why Carol Burnett's Miss Hannigan runs the orphanage, is because she is, like, you know, it's the 30s, it's right after the Great Depression, you know, all this is basically during the Great Depression, and that's her option. Whereas, you know, in 2014, Miss Hannigan, it's just like, oh, I get an extra 127 a month, which is like nothing, really. Yeah. Like that, like, I feel like you would do more just, like, even, like, singing for tips weekly at, like, open mics Like, that's so little.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think that's part of the social commentary that this film was trying to do, that where it just really didn't land. They're like, I get 157 or whatever the fucking amount a week for each one of you kids, and I don't need that, so you can get out of here and whatever. But like, by trying to be like, oh, this is how foster kids are treated, or this is how this system works, it was more of just, it fell flat again. Where that should, like, because they brought it up like several times that throughout this movie. They just wanted to like really bust that in there. But why? There was no real like motivation for anyone in this movie, it felt like.
And you don't even see it redeemed. Is like with her, there's no, on the elephant ending scene with this big dance. I don't think she's in the scene where they're opening the literacy. There we go. Weird word to mess up on. The Center for Books. I think she's not even in that scene.
She's in the parade and she's like singing at the end, I think. But everybody's
also,
just kind of like,
back
what the fuck?
Again, fuck those orphans. What are they going to do after they got books but nothing else?
True.
They got cell phones now because their girl Annie hooked them up.
That's true. There's no way they're all living in that apartment, though.
They're going to be YouTube stars now, or Stax
they're
Tube
disco
stars.
girls.
Oh, fuck. The part that I wanted to bring up, Eric, did you love how Stax kept referring to himself as Batman? Did you and Eric love that?
Like, oh my God. Truly, it's so boring. It is such a boring, like, I'm so misunderstood, you'll never know me. Well, tell me about it. I can't, and I won't.
The city needs me. Why does it need you?
The city, oh my God.
Because I'm
Shut
Batman.
up. Yeah, and then later he's like, did you see that? I'm Batman. I saved a little girl. Ha. And you're like, okay, cool, great. Shut up. You're not Batman. Nobody's Batman. You guys suck. Like, it's such a boring take. And I already did, like, this character was already super boring. Also, what was that fucking song when they're in the helicopter? Like, just Stax and Annie?
Oh, the one about the cell phone towers being hidden?
Yeah. That was so bad.
Every song was so forgettable.
All the songs were forgettable. Okay, I will say, I want to see whatever fucking movie premiere they went to, because if it is truly a Phil Lord, Chris Miller movie starring Rihanna, I'm fucking there. Did you guys notice that?
Yes, but also, how is that a premiere when there's 3 other films after that all of those little girls have seen?
True.
Did you catch that?
Yep.
I was like, wait, why is this a premiere and why is this a badass party that I want to go to when all the other films are already out?
Well, was it like it's like a book series?
I don't know. I
like
thought they were talking about
know.
like film, how there's like 4 more books or 4 more films or something.
I don't know. Whatever movie that was,
wild.
though, I was here for. I want to see it so bad. It looks so silly and like, ugh, yes.
They ran out of moon
I was so impressed with like Rihanna. Yes, like this is so dumb, and I'm so on board for it. There was also a part right at the end, and I don't know why this was even there, but it's at the end after the whole singing and dance number. Everything's happy, yay, yay, yay. Bobby Moynihan is in a bar. And it cuts to him looking at a TV with his friend at some bar. And he says, he keeps singing and dancing like that. There's no way he was ever going to win. As a fun, casual nod to male or mask presenting people doing something that is anything other than. So it's just some queer-phobic shit where they're just like, oh, he's a man who's singing and dancing. What a gay. Like, can't have that. And it was the most
Gross.
unnecessary line. And the most unnecessary scene in the movie that was just like, hey, if you thought we were bad, let's throw in some queer phobia too. Bam, we're out. Like, okay, Annie, what the fuck? Like,
do you guys also, yeah, like, I feel like nothing happened, but then there were those like moments where it's like, why are you turning this into a queer phobic thing? Why are you naming the dog after Hurricane Sandy? Like, why?
Which was just... Yeah, like it seems like it was one of those things like we've discussed earlier with a lot of movies where they're trying so hard to call upon its predecessor. They're trying so hard to like do the sort of fun, nerdy Easter egg thing of like, hey, remember the first one when the dog's name was Sandy? Well, what else does New York and Sandy have in common? A hurricane. Let's drop that little thing in there. And then like,
who thought that was funny? Who thought that was a good joke? Why in the world would you name like,
maybe it's a New York thing. Maybe we just don't get it, y'all.
I don't know. If you're from New York and you thought that was funny, write in and let us know.
Yeah.
At us and at this movie's Twitter, because it probably had a Twitter. Oh, and then like the part where it's like Katy Perry was like, "Who is she?" Like on Twitter, and I was like, "What is happening?"
I hated that so
who
much.
Who is she? Oh my god, who is Annie? And like again, fucking Annie just exists, so fucking Stacks Warbucks dude can like have some sort of growth, but then like his whole growth is he just wants more money and more power because he misses his daddy.
Yeah,
but like he doesn't have any connection with anybody from his family or anybody from that era, like doesn't talk about his mom or any other family, or like that was just so confusing. And he's like, I don't know why I want to be a politician, just because I want my business to be a success. And also, you don't want to be around anybody and you don't trust anybody. So instead what you do is you build a cell phone company where you literally track and hold everybody's data for 20 years. So you can go back 6 years ago and try to find Andy's parents using that type of technology. Like, oh, it's okay. We got their locations. We got their conversations. We got this. So like, I don't know, like if it was trying to be like, yeah, data is great, or like data is terrifying. Like, I don't know.
It didn't choose it. Like you said, it didn't choose a side, right? It was like, oh, you've been keeping all this stuff? And they're like, yeah. And then it's like, can you find my mom and dad? Yeah, we can. So it's like the good and the bad. So it's like, it's not trying to pick a side. But then what was bothering me a lot too with, I think the last one had it, the whole like handouts thing, the idea that like Stacks is having this sort of monologuist moment saying like, I am rich because I worked hard for it. Like, everyone else just doesn't try hard enough. That's why they're poor and that's why they're not successful. And I was like, okay, that's not true. And go fuck yourself. And also, what does this have to do with, why are you trying to teach this little girl that like, that's the way, that's not how it goes. Like, fuck off. Like, just bar none, fuck off. That's not how it goes. And then that tied with like the parents saying the same line of like, oh, we don't believe in handouts. We believe in hand ups. When he was like going to give them money. What is the narrative of this? Are you guys trying to paint like the villains as people who believe those things, or is that sort of the ethos of the thing? Because if we go back to the idea that we're not getting any sort of concretely good or concretely bad characters in this, because there is that first scene too with Lou in the bodega when they're watching on TV, Stacks is saying something along the lines of whatever, politician stuff. Cuts to Lou and Lou's like, politics are all liars, blah, blah, blah. In that moment, Annie's rewriting the date on the thing. And she's like, well, what did you want me to write? He's like, oh, just put 2 weeks on it. So you're comparing lies upon lies. So you're convoluting this idea of like, who is good, who is bad, what is good, what is bad. But then with what we're supposed to assume are the bad characters, you're perpetuating this almost libertarian centrist leaning ethic, politic. And that's kind of like, no handouts, please, and bootstrap this and whatever. And we're not even going to talk about systematic inequality. Like, what? Who?
In the other one, they were talking about like, okay, cool. Like, you know, there was the whole scene with FDR and stuff where it's like, okay, we're going to put America back to work. We're going to build this. We're going to do this. This is tomorrow. This is what we're looking for tomorrow. But then this one, he's not trying to do any of that. And there's never a point where he's like, I'm going to give back. You know, like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Like, so there is no humanitarian element to this. We just see this man and his wealth, and we see that he likes it and he's just going to keep it, and also keep all this fucking information. And his redeeming quality at the end is just like, oh, you're mad because you think that I hired these people to get rid of you? Hey, everybody, I'm not running for president or for whatever anymore. And you're like, that's supposed to be cool? Like, see, I did the thing. See, it's fine. Like, Where's the distribution of wealth? Where is the talking about like why tomorrow is going to be better or what you're working for and everything? When he's talking about like, well, everybody just needs to work harder and stuff like that. Cool. But there's not the opportunity for anybody right now. So like, what are you, how are people supposed to have an opportunity to better their lives or do any of that when you're actually part of the problem?
It was a very sterile look at the optimistic idea of what USA promotes as the pursuit of happiness. Felt like it's like I just walked into a government building. They gave me a pamphlet on like, this is what America is, like blah. And we're like, thanks government. Like, it's just it was a very silly, very, very surface, very simple, unrefined, unrealistic version of what the class system looks like in America. Coming from somebody who is insanely rich.
Yeah, I have nothing more to say about this movie. It was, I didn't take very many notes on it at all.
I think that's fair.
And we're back from Annie, 2014 and 1982. What a mess. Okay.
We loved it.
Eric, who was the first one for Annie 1982?
I don't know. Rich gays? Maybe. I don't know. They had Bernadette and Tim doing the whatever shuffle with
the Easy Street Shuffle.
Cara Burnett, yeah. So I'm like, well, and then it's like this conversation about like, well, whatever. We got into it. Yes. So I'm gonna say rich gays, wealthy gays. That's who it's for.
Alex, who do you think it was for?
Bolsheviks.
You know what? They didn't get their fair shot here in this story. You're right.
I know.
We didn't. Oh my God! We didn't even talk about the 2014 Russian woman. Oh my God!
Oh, right, the clerk.
Oh my God!
What is that?
I'm gonna say that this film was for Martin Scorsese and Steven Spielberg and all those people that don't want streaming films to make it into the Oscars or anything because they want Hollywood to exist like it did in the Let's Go to the Movies thing.
Yeah. We love a good self-referential moment.
Love to see myself in film. I'm sure they feel super seen.
Love.
It's great.
Love to see it. We collectively, as a whole, love to see it.
Did you like it, Eric?
Yeah. Okay. I did like it. I thought it was cool. The messaging was odd. The songs were great. The musical was great. The staging was great. The choreography was great. I loved who they cast for the most part. I mean, sans racism. Yeah, I enjoyed it. You know what? I'm gonna give it 7. I don't know, a 7. Out of what? I'm unsure, but I'm gonna say a 7. Okay, Alex, did you like it?
I did. I cried at the end of it.
Oh my God, I did too. I got so emotional.
I would give it like...
Is it a like it, love it, or gotta have it?
I have sold the DVD, and then I had to re-rent it on Amazon. So I would probably say love it, not gotta have it.
Ooh.
But I paid $3.99 for the HD version, so...
I still like it. Yeah. I love it. I don't gotta have it. I love it. Mostly because of like the Easy Street performance and stuff like that. God, it's so good. And like the dancing, like the songs are truly like the best part of this whole thing. Okay, remake. Eric, was it new and interesting or the same, progressive, regressive? Give me your take.
Okay, I will say it was new, but it wasn't interesting. It was new in concept, new in its... We're in 2014 now. It's a cell phone instead of oil and what, you know what I mean? So new, interesting. It was not because it still had that same sentiment about it. That was just like, what? But it was like more of a convoluted version of that sentiment. And it just was worse.
What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, it tried to bank on like, you know, I guess in 2014. It's hard to think of that because like meme culture didn't exist in the same sort of way 6 years ago. So I was 16. I think I was pretty like in the like total rejection of everything like that. So I never, like, even if I had been invited, I probably would have just said no to going and seeing that.
Oh yeah.
When it came out. Watching it now, and I intentionally watched that one and then the 1980s one, just to make sure I got like that in my brain. Yeah, it was kind of disappointing. I would definitely never rewatch it. The other one I will still watch. This one, I think I got what I needed out of it. And it was just like, is it a movie? Is it a musical? It can't decide. And then like the only dance scene that's really big is like at the end, and it just doesn't make any sense. And it just had that whole thing of also like, oh, we have like 10 minutes. We need to wrap up the entire movie really quickly. And it was just weird. None of the characters made sense. It was just bad choices.
It had like an identity crisis.
Yeah.
I think.
Really did.
I agree with both of you that it was new, but it was not interesting. It was so boring. I was on my phone like quite a bit. I only, like, for the first Annie, I probably took 6 pages of notes. For this one, it was maybe like a page and a half. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. It was just, it felt really, I don't know if it was progressive or regressive because it didn't feel like it was saying anything. It feels like it just exists and it's there. All right. Sure is.
Yeah.
Like,
it exists now.
You know what? I'm going to say it's regressive because of some of those shitty jokes that it was making and because of the way that they were trying to, like, Hannigan's character was no longer about cyclical abuse and about finding your own morality and all this other stuff. It was more about just the world owes me because I was supposed to be a star and then I'm not a star and, oh, wait, but you like me, so I guess I'm okay. Like, it was just lacking so much of the nuance that made the first one like I'll watch the first one again. This one no
yeah,
not at all. Who was it for, Eric?
It was for bad pop music in 2000 or 2009. It was for bad pop music of 2009.
Ooh, good. Who do you think it was for, Alex?
People who miss Singular.
Oh, the
Cell Network. People that thought, man, 2006 technology never got. Those phones were so weird looking.
They were.
They looked like the little like safety phone that you'd get that would have like 2 buttons, like home and police.
Was it the cricket? With the cricket phones?
Yeah, like that kind of thing. So this is like, I don't know. It also just like Tumblr. It felt like that kind of era, like early 2010 Tumblr.
Ooh.
Personified in a lot of the kind of like trying to adapt something to be more modernistic and inclusive, but then fails at it horribly because they realize that the original script is based in, not any of that.
Yeah,
yes,
I mean, that's true.
I love that. I'm gonna say that it is for people that like watch like the Disney Channel or Hallmark Channel or Lifetime just because they want the happy endings on all of the things, and it doesn't matter what kind of substance it is.
Yeah.
The Tumblr version of that.
Yeah. Like what is that? Was it called Happy Ending? The Avril Lavigne song? All this time you were pretending, so much for my happy ending. Whatever. What?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
That's Avril Lavigne, right? Do we know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's this movie. That song is this movie.
I mean, this movie would have been better if Avril Lavigne just rewrote all of the songs.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
Cast them. Give Rihanna a bigger part. What the fuck? She was great. Fucking go watch Battleship again and tell me she could not do great in this. Come on, y'all. She would have been so good. Fuck off.
I need to go watch that.
Anyways, yeah.
Did you like it, Eric?
Did I enjoy it? Yes. Did I like it? No. I enjoyed my time because of how silly it was. It's not a good movie. I didn't like it, but I did enjoy my time. Yes. What about you, Alex? Did you like it?
I guess for that one time, yes. I enjoyed it enough to get through it.
Okay. Jess, what do you think?
I did not like it, and
No.
I will never watch it again. And yeah, nope, it was rough. It was rough for me. Thank you for joining us, Alex.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Alex.
Fun.
I'm so happy that you finally got to do it. We're finally getting together in quarantine.
Hell yeah. All right, well, that's it, I guess. Thank you so much. Again, you can write into us at NOTstalgiaPodcast@gmail.com. Special thanks to David Tercero for tech support, Danny Barkley for editing our podcast, Alex. Check him out at Lava Socks. He runs a lovely, lovely music label that both of our bands are on, and is in like the best band in the world, Sarcasm.
Truly.
We'll link them in show notes. And thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everybody. This was great.
And remember, stay cute
and stay critical.